Good morning and welcome to the Hillsborough TPO, Transportation Planning Organization, meeting of the Policy Committee. We'll call the meeting to order and do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, and if we could do a roll call of the members.
Commissioner Kemp,
Here.
Commissioner Cohen, Commissioner Smith,
Here.
Councilman Maniscalco,
Here.
Commissioner Overman,
Here.
Bob Fry, Joe Wagoner, Commissioner Myers, Charles Klug, Paul Anderson.
I guess that's the whole TPO, is it, Ms. Alden?
It's our members and our alternates.
Oh, okay, for this
including-
committee?
For this
Oh,
committee,
wow.
including some of the board members have alternates. So, of course, Mr. Wagner's alternate is Mr. Fry, and
I
Mr.
have it.
Anderson's alternate is Mr. Klug.
Got it. Thank you.
And we'd like to welcome TPO board member, Councilman Cedro. And I do need to let you know that some members are participating virtually because of medical reasons in the local declaration of emergency.
Thank you. And yes, I did want to welcome Councilman Citro. And I'll read this into the record. Please be advised that I cannot attend today's TPO meeting as I will be out of town. I will be unable to get a return flight. I wonder if Commissioner Cohen is still in Istanbul until later this afternoon. Please excuse any inconvenience this may cause. Please read this memo into the record. Thank you. And this is from our chair, Commissioner Harry Cohen. So with that, we will move to approval of the minutes. We have a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
Okay, we have Councilman Maniscalco and Commissioner Overman as a second here, and maybe we can just do an affirmation. Is there any objections to approving the minutes? All in support? Okay. I did that kind of backwards, but okay, so we've approved the minutes, and we'll move to public comment. As I understand, there's no public comment this morning. Is that okay? And with that, we'll move to the action items. We have elections of officers for 2022.
And I believe our attorney, Mr. Clark, is on the line. Typically, he runs our election for us. but-
Morning, Board. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Good morning, Cameron Clark, MPO attorney. I'm going to conduct the election of officers for the policy committee, and there are the positions of chair and vice chair. As per usual, I'll ask for nominations, and if there is only one nomination, there will not need to be a vote. There are no seconds required for nominations, and I will ask for votes in the order of nomination. So are there any nominations for TPO policy committee chair?
I'll nominate our current chair, Commissioner Pat Kemp.
Commissioner Kemp is nominated. Are there any other nominations? Any other nominations? Hearing none, Commissioner Kemp is elected as TPO Policy Committee Chair. Congratulations, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Are there any nominations for Vice Chair of TPO Policy Committee?
I'll nominate Councilman Maniscalco.
Councilman Maniscalco is nominated. Are there any other nominations? Hearing none, Councilman Maniscalco is elected TPO Policy Committee Vice Chair. Congratulations. That's all I have, members, for this committee.
And I'll congratulate Councilman Maniscalco on being newly married. And then we'll move to the next item, and that's the Green Artery Trail Study. Correct, Ms. Alden, with Wade Reynolds and TPO staff and Jennifer Musselman of Kittleson, TPO consultant.
Yes, ma'am. Wade Reynolds will introduce the item. Thank you.
And thank you, Commissioner Wade Reynolds, TPO staff. I just want to introduce this project. Many of you all will remember the Green Artery, which is a citizen-led initiative to connect many of our urban core neighborhoods. And this project looks to connect the north end of that trail up to the USF area. It also builds on a lot of work done by the city of Tampa with the walk-bike plans that have a number of other east-west and north-south roadway safety projects in this area, and the work that FDOT is doing on Fowler Avenue to hopefully install a shared use path and make some needed safety improvements. Finally, the county is also doing a number of improvements along Bruceby Downs and on other roads in the county's jurisdiction of this area. So this is a great project to bring many of those together in an area that sorely needs it. So with that, I'll introduce Jennifer Musselman with Kittleson and Associates, and thank you for your time.
Thanks, Wade, and good morning, everyone. As Wade mentioned, we are exploring a trail connection from the proposed Green Artery Trail, which runs along the Hillsborough River, up to USF and a lot of the redevelopment that's happening around the University Mall and the Veterans Hospital. There's also several neighborhoods within this study area that we're hoping to connect and provide some trail facilities, a couple of key parks with Rowlett Park and Copeland Park. And some, a few public schools as well.
Feeling better?
I think we have someone on the,
Yeah.
somebody has to mute their microphone. Thank you. Okay, and for the record, I'll just say that Commissioner Myers has arrived.
Thank you, Chair.
Go ahead, you can go ahead.
So we have 3 proposed alignments through this study area to present to you all today. The first, in red here, travels along the western part of the study area, primarily on 12th Street, and then a quick jog over to Lantana Avenue before connecting into some of the proposed treatments on Fowler Avenue that Wade mentioned. A key highlight of this alignment is that it does serve the communities of concern the best. There are several communities of concern within the study area, and they are primarily located on this western side. So this gives direct access to those folks to some of these study area amenities. 12th and Lantana today are both pretty slow streets with 25-mile-per-hour posted speeds and pretty minimal traffic. These aren't primary routes north-south. So we want to take advantage of that and are proposing a bike boulevard or neighborhood greenway treatment. And so this map that you're seeing on the right here, it's in the report if you want to look in more detail. We're proposing a lot of speed management treatments, speed humps, mini traffic circles, some traffic diverters to really slow the speeds even further on the street, get any through traffic to divert over to maybe Nebraska or 15th, so that bicyclists can share the road with cars. And then also focus on some key pedestrian improvements, filling some sidewalk gaps and making sure that crossings are more safe and comfortable. Our second alignment in green here is primarily on 22nd Street. It starts on Rowlett Park Drive, connecting into Rowlett Park, and then goes up 22nd before jogging over into USF. This one is kind of right in the middle of the study area, so you're getting good access to both of the parks and kind of connecting several of the neighborhoods along the way. 22nd Street is a bit faster today at 30 miles an hour. It has a bit more traffic. It's more of a through route. So we feel like in order for this to be comfortable, a separated trail would be more ideal. So you can see in the bottom here, a physically separated trail as the concept. And then our spot treatments on the map are really focused on increasing visibility of the trail, especially at driveways, like one in the photo. And so doing some raised crosswalks, some branded crosswalks, so drivers are aware of the trail as they're making turns on and off of 22nd Street and crossing over. And the third and final alignment that we explored is 30th Street, so the east end of the study area. It follows the same alignment in the beginning as Alternative 2, so Rowlett Park Drive, along the park, and then up 30th Street all the way to USF and the VA hospital. A unique thing about this trail is that the city of Tampa has already started designing quite a bit of this, so these are some of their concepts. So between Yukon and Bush Boulevard, they're proposing a shared street where bicyclists would share the lane with cars. And then between Bush and Fowler, where speeds are a little higher, traffic's a little higher, a physically separated trail. And there's, as you can see in kind of the typical section at the bottom, there's quite a bit of space out there today to be able to accommodate that trail. At the start of the project, we identified 6 goals for the study and how we would evaluate these different trail alignments. So first and foremost, improving safety for bicyclists and pedestrians, increasing low-stress network connectivity between key destinations and trying to leverage a lot of the planned improvements, several of which Wade mentioned at the beginning with FDOT's changes on Bush Boulevard, potential plan changes on Fowler. The city has several projects in the study area with some maybe east-west connections, and the county also has a couple of projects up in the Bruce Downs area. Wanting to improve access for communities of concern to everyday amenities through low-stress connections, wanting to leverage the Uptown Master Plans to the redevelopment of the University Mall to increase connectivity with the surrounding community, improve walk and bike access to high-frequency transit routes, so provide key connections to different heart stops, and then make sure the trail is attractive to users of all ages and abilities, so a very high-comfort facility. So these charts share how each of these alternatives compared against our goals. That's the one on the top, and then some potential risks on the bottom. So alternative 1, while it scored the lowest overall, it is, as I mentioned earlier, the best for the communities of concern. So it gives those folks direct access to a high-quality facility. It's also the lowest to implement. It's the lowest cost. It relies on a lot of spot treatments that can be done incrementally over time. And so it's, we think it will be the easiest to get on the ground in the near term. Alternative 2, as it did go kind of straight through the middle of the study area, is scoring the highest, especially as a physically separated trail. It is a pretty high-risk project. There's a lot of utilities along the street. There's not a lot of space today for a separated trail. We may have to move utilities, shift the road over a bit, so it could get pretty costly pretty quickly. So we also evaluated it as a shared facility, which is scored a little bit lower, but it would be easier to implement in the near term with bike sharing the road with cars. And alternative 3 scored right in the middle, substantially still meeting most of the goals. Some similar risk to alternative 2. It is a full separated trail, so that comes with a cost, but you don't have as many of the constraints as alternative 2, and we think we can fit it in fairly easily how the roadway is aligned today. So sharing some of the feedback that we've heard from different agency partners in the community. We had a focus group that we met with one-on-one at the beginning of the study, and then as a group later on to share alternatives. So each of the municipalities, maintaining agencies out here, University of South Florida, the Rhythm at Uptown University Mall, Innovation Partnership, and then the Veterans Hospital. During that focus group meeting in the middle of the study, we shared 3 alignments to get feedback from them. An outcome of that meeting was changing alternative 1. It was originally on 15th Street, but that is a little bit of a higher volume street, and so they suggested shifting over to 12th, so we went ahead and made that adjustment. This is where we talked through some of those constraints on 22nd Street. It was noted that on 30th, even if you have a separated trail, there's still pretty high speed and traffic, so it may not be the most comfortable, even if you are far from the road. And then just a desire to make sure that we're taking into account future development as we're planning these alignments. Once we made some of those changes from the focus group, we put out an online survey. So each of those key partners helped spread the word to their communities and organizations. We spent a day out in the field with TPO staff handing out flyers and handed them out to all of the homes along that 12th Lantana Street alignment in the communities of concern, all the homes in the Campus Hills Drive neighborhood up by USF and the VA hospital. They don't have a homeowners association, so it's a little bit harder to reach them in an organized fashion. And then we handed flyers at about 40 different apartments, businesses, community centers, places that we thought residents of the area would frequent often. We spent some time at the University Area Transit Center at the top of our study area to hand out flyers and conduct surveys in person with transit riders. And then we also had a Facebook advertisement to the study area zip codes. So folks, as they were traveling through the area, living in the area, would have that pop up on their feed. We had 77 responses to the survey, and over 30 of those were in communities of concern. So we were pretty happy with both the turnout and the representation captured in the survey. Most of the survey respondents would fall in that interested but concerned category. So they want to walk and ride, but they want to make sure they have a comfortable facility to do so. Health and fitness was still a primary motivation, so not as many folks in the survey using transportation as a necessity, more for recreation. And then some of the key destinations, USF, University Mall, the parks, neighborhoods. You can see in the charts in the top right, most did prefer a separated trail and separated bike lanes, followed by the shared lane marking. So not too surprising there. And then as far as what's keeping them from biking, not enough paths not going where they need, not feeling safe. As far as which alternatives they prefer, 30th Street was the most preferred alternative out of the three. And then for 22nd Street, we asked a follow-up question since we're not sure if we can get that trail in there, at least in the near term, if folks would be comfortable traveling on the street in a shared street configuration. Pretty overwhelmingly, folks said no. They may be able to suffer through in the short term if a trail was promised in the future, but they would really prefer that separated trail if 22nd Street was selected. So with that input and a lot of the momentum that's happening on 30th Street, we are recommending continuing to advance alternative 3, alignment 3 along 30th Street, and then took a bit of a network approach to the recommendations and are also suggesting that we continue with alternative 1. So this provides some good choices through the study area. Again, this project is already underway. It's not funded for construction yet, but it's well on its way to get there. And then alternative 1 is that nearer term option that we can get on the ground a little bit low cost and really meet the needs of the communities of concern in this study area. So we kind of cheated. I'm recommending 2 alternatives instead of 1, but we feel like this provides a really great network of options in the study area. And so last slide, just some of the input that we heard from the committees. So we went in December, so it was the Joint Technical Citizens Advisory Committee. General support, there was one member that stated that they would only want to see those shared lane markings if the travel speeds were 20 miles per hour, which would be the goal for 12th and Lantana. If you remember, that City of Tampa project between Yukon and Bush had 30 miles an hour, so something that we'll want to look at a little bit closer. With the Livable Roadways Committee, they recommended some additional engagement with Hillsborough County Schools, which TPO staff has since completed, so thank you. They appreciated the 12th Lantana alignment as a lot of students live in that area, so good options for them to get to school, and then requested additional engagement during the design phase, which would happen. For transportation disadvantaged, wanted to make sure that lighting would be explored during design, to make sure folks with visual limitations could still be able to see crossings at night. And then Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee, again, appreciated that 12th Street Lantana Avenue alignment for the communities of concern, and liked the idea of recommending 2 of the alignments to move forward. So that's all we have for you today. Happy to answer any questions. And this is an action item to recommend approval to the TPO board in the next meeting.
Thank you. Looks really promising, and I don't know if there's anyone that has questions or would like to comment on it. Commissioner Smith, go ahead.
Thank you. I'm not clear about what the risk is that is counting against some things like separated bike lanes for safety. I mean, you mentioned the difficulty of putting things in because of like buried cables or lines or utilities or something. can you explain a little bit more about what makes something lose points, an alternative lose points for being high risk?
Absolutely. And so the safety is one of the goals. And so the separated facilities, we did score them highest in the safety category. The risks are more about implementation. So the cost to construct the project, some of these would need changes to bridges over the Hillsborough River to make that final connection to the Green Artery Trail, the number of private property owners that would need to be coordinated with, that would be directly along the alignments. So it's whether or not we feel like this can be implemented in a reasonable way. Anything can be done with time and money, right? But wanting to make sure that we're recommending an option that is a good use of TPO resources and efficient use of resources and still meeting the needs of the community. So just trying to balance those two a bit.
Thank you. For my part, as our traffic gets more and more congested and with the speeds being an issue that was noted by some of the participants of cars, I mean, I would just, as we move these two options forward, or if we do whatever, I would just urge us to think a little bit more broadly about the, and weigh the value of the safety over, not get too bogged down in what's the simplest, easiest, cheapest thing to do when we're in an exciting time with possible federal infrastructure dollars coming, not only with the ARP, but with the IIJ something, and then there's Build Back Better coming behind that. And from what I've seen, this will include funds for bicycle pedestrian safety facilities. But also, I mean, being among the most dangerous places in America for bicycle pedestrian safety, I think our community is willing to invest in safety, even time and money, to make sure we're getting those separated bike paths and getting bike paths that people will use, as you noted in your presentation. That's why people aren't bicycling. That's the main reason why people aren't bicycling. I would also say that when you have, or point out, I'm sure you're aware, but when you ask a survey question about are you bicycling, are you walking, are you using transit, and people say no, it's like that Henry Ford thing where he said if he asked people what they would have wanted him to build, it would have been a better horse and carriage. I mean, people are, not considering bicycling until you really provide that safe infrastructure that gets them all the way connected and makes it practical for them to use it. So those are my comments. I would just press for us to do, push the envelope towards of money and time towards a safer bicycle pedestrian infrastructure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Overman?
Thank you, and thank you, Commissioner Smith, for bringing up those issues, because you are correct. And the alternative, too, they had two sort of strikes against it when it talked about full roadway reconstruction and full reconstruction, and then the narrow facilities at Rolette Park Bridge. I'm real familiar with that area. While there's a lot of right-of-way and sidewalk along that Rolette Park Drive to Yukon, the Yukon's pretty thin through there, so reconstruction of the road is probably why that does exist. It's one of the very few roads in the city of Tampa with speed humps to slow people down through there, which is absolutely necessary. So I can understand how reconstruction is possibly recommended, but I'd hate to see the speed bumps disappear because we resurface the road. But I was curious if anyone, if when we're talking about reconstruction and the Rolette Park Bridge, is there a schedule or a recommendation for that bridge as far as rebuilding that bridge? Because there's a lot of right of way until you get to it. Does anybody know if that is on the schedule for reconstruction at a future date? I mean, has that been considered? It seems like it's in good shape, but you don't know until it falls down, so. And there is a lot of water flow at that level of the bridge because it's right below the dam.
Do we have any, does anyone know the answer to that at this time?
In your coordination with the Tampa staff, did you hear anything about the Rowlett Park Bridge?
No, we did not, I don't think.
Okay.
It might be
Sure.
something to look into for the future. That's
Yeah,
good.
because I was just curious, because there is, the trail was planning on going, the Green Artery Trail was planning on going through the neighborhood at that point. The right-of-way is really thin through a lot of that area. But having a safe area, there's schools, there's parks, it connects a lot of really nice things in that area. But concern about reconstruction of the overall road needs to be addressed. But to Commissioner Smith's point, we don't want to do it when it's the best way to actually make it work. So that was why I asked about the bridge, because if that's the barrier, we need to find out when that was scheduled for replacement.
I keep wanting to see pedestrian bicycle bridges, just where they're doing it in other areas, over big bodies of water or.
There's a sidewalk there, but it's really not,
Right,
there's no way
right.
to put a bike lane in there.
Mhm, yes,
Thank you.
thank you. So seeing no other comments, I don't think?
To the full board?
Okay.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilman Maniscalco, and was that seconded by Commissioner Myers? Seconded by Commissioner Myers, and seeing no other comments at this time, can we do a roll call vote? I'm sorry, we can't hear you?
Did you want a roll call vote? I can't hear you.
Yes. Oh, sorry, yes. Mm-hmm.
Commissioner Kemp?
Yes.
Commissioner Smith?
Yes.
Commissioner Overman?
Yes.
Councilman Maniscalco?
Yes.
Commissioner Myers?
Yes.
Charles Klug?
Yes.
And the motion passes.
Thank you. And with that, we will move to our next item, the State of the System Report. Ishaka Shiva Raman, TPO staff. I hope I did that okay.
Yes. Good morning, Commissioners. This is Vishaka Shivaraman, TPO staff. Can you hear me all?
Yes, we can. A little bit more volume might be good.
Yeah, I'll try to. I have a sore throat, that's why let me try to speak as loud as I can.
There we go. That's better, much better.
Thank you. I'll share my screen. Can you all see my screen now?
Yes, we can.
All right, thank you. So, good morning. As I said, I'm going to be presenting to you the State of the System report, which has been a year's worth of effort by the TPO. And I will go over what measures we have recorded this time and how the system performed. So as you all know, the State of the System report reports the performance of the transportation system as it is today. We report the current spending by the jurisdictions, and which helps to track the progress and see if we are prioritizing funding in the right direction and meeting the federally set goals and the state goals. So, like I said, this report is being updated. The last time it was updated was in 2018, and it's been 3 years since it was last updated. And what's different in this year? As you all know, that COVID-19 pandemic disrupted the travel patterns. The VMT dropped, and there have been a lot of people working from home, and travel changed. And in the meantime, Hillsborough County had a lot of events and people also moving. With that being said, this is the map on the right, which shows the projections of the traffic and projections of the people and jobs where they will be in 2045, which helps to know where we need to prioritize funding in the future. This is a chart which shows kind of how the state of the system report follows the investment program. The structure of the state of the system follows the LRTP and the TIP. So all the projects mentioned here will fit one of these investment programs. The first one being the good repair and resilience. The first goal, one of the goals of the good repair and resilience is to maintain the payments in good condition. And these are all federally set targets. And the state of the system tries to see if how we are performing in each of these categories. We have over 12,000 miles, and the payment quality of the roads are measured in an index called PCI. This is a chart which shows how the interstate payments compare with Hillsborough compares with the rest of the peer counties across the region and also with the state. And you can see that the interstate payments, we are just falling short of the target, which is 60%, whereas some of the other jurisdictions are doing a little better or a little worse. Similarly, for the non-interstate payments, we need to meet the target set by the goal setters. 40% of the roads need to be in good condition or better. And here again, we fail to meet the target narrowly by where Hillsborough County is performing at 36%. So both the NHS interstate and the non-interstates do not meet the statewide targets. The chart here kind of represents graphically how the payments are performing across the region. And as you can see here, the colors moving from red being failed roads, the PCI index, this is measured by the PCI index. And as the color moves from orange to light yellow, light green and dark green, those are the areas where the payments are performing good or very good. So across the region, we can see how the payments are performing. And the greens and the dark greens are the ones where it's performing very good. The next goal of the good repair and resilience is to maintain, this is the spending on the roadway maintenance. This chart shows that all the jurisdictions and the main contributors here are FDOT and Hillsborough, and all the jurisdictions together have programmed over $86 million per year. This, when we compare to the target spending, the trend scenario set by the 2045 LRTP, with around 64 million a year, we can only resurface 60% of the roads once in 17 years. So the goal is to see that if we can allocate more funding, we can resurface more roads in the coming years, and more money can be spent towards roadway maintenance and maintaining the roads. The next goal here is to maintain the bridges in good condition. There are, when we measure, there are around 820 bridges in the Hillsborough County region, out of which 491 are NHS structures. The majority of the bridges are maintained by the county. And this chart here shows kind of how the bridges are distributed. The green ones are the ones which are performing good, and the orange and the yellows are the bridges which are failing. So there is a lot of bridges which needs to be repaired. Overall, around 76% of the bridges by deck area are in good condition, and this meets the statewide goal. And this is the chart which shows how Hillsborough County compares with the rest of the region in Florida, and also with the state. And it is performing decent compared to the peer counties. This is the chart which shows how the bridge spending is spent. Again, FDOT and Hillsborough County are the main contributors for the bridge repair. And overall, all the jurisdictions have allocated nearly 10 million per year for bridges. But again, when we compare it to the trend spending, this money can only help us to achieve one major and one minor rehab of the bridge and continue the maintenance. And that is with the trend money of 15 million per year. We don't even have that much. So we need to allocate more money towards some of the major bridge spending, and if we need to continue the maintenance. The state of good repair also means that we need to maintain the transit assets in good condition. The transit assets being the vehicles, the infrastructure, and the equipments that support the transit. We know that HART is a major provider for transit service, which covers over 1,000 square miles and with over 200 buses. Out of that, around 31 fixed route buses, 21 paratransit, and one non-vehicle revenue and non-revenue vehicle have met their useful life, which represents about 41% of the fleet, which are in need of replacement. This implies that in the long run, the buses and the rail tracks and everything needs to be maintained better, and we need more money towards fulfilling this goal. This is a chart which shows how much money is being spent by the different jurisdictions, and around 53 million per year is allocated towards transit spending. And the goal is with this money, we can maintain the average fleet age of 9 years. But if we have more funding, we can aim to reduce the fleet age from 9 to 7 years. That being said, I just wanted to mention here the highlight that FDOT has requested for an additional funding through a TIP amendment for the HART transit facility, which is in need of maintenance and repair. And around 4 million has been requested by FDOT for FY 2022. That TIP amendment has not come, it'll be coming in the next month or so. But I just wanted to put it across to you that some money will be received additionally for the transit assets, mainly the transit facility. Under the state of good repair and resilience, the other goal is to maintain the resiliency to storms, flood and sea level rise. As we all know that Tampa Bay is under severe stormwater surge threat and vulnerable to inland flooding, with over 11% of the roads vulnerable to rainfall and 20% vulnerable to hurricane storm surge. We have over 115 miles of critical roads that are highly vulnerable. And with the amount that's been allocated, only 39 million per year is allocated towards stormwater and drainage, which means that we need around 22 million annually for the next 20 years to address some of these issues as per the LRTP. And this money will only help us to support some of the build some of the drainage, shoreline preservation, and improve the flooding resilience. This is a chart which shows overall how the money is being spent. I just mentioned the bridge, the road, transit, and the stormwater, but there are other general maintenance and routine maintenance, which altogether all the jurisdictions have allocated over 1 billion for the next 5 years, which means around 200 million per year annually for maintenance. The second funding bucket is Vision Zero, and the goal of Vision Zero is to reduce fatal and serious injury crashes. We all know that fatalities dropped in 2020, but picked up at the end of the year. And unfortunately, when we look at the crash data analytics, when we last measured, it was in the beginning of December, we had over 233 233 fatalities from crashes, which is a pretty high number. And the goal is actually to have the rate of fatalities at 1.38 and to maintain the serious injuries at 8.49 for a rolling average if we need to meet the statewide targets. We also looked at the number of non-motorized serious injuries and crashes. In 2020, it was around 227. The similar trend followed in 221, which means that it could be probably due to more people walking and biking and having unsafe conditions and being vulnerable to crashes. Excuse me. This is a chart which shows how much FDOT and the other counties are spending towards, other jurisdictions are spending towards Vision Zero for the next 5 years. We have only roughly about 27 million allocated for this category, and we can see that with the LRTP trend spending, which was around 18 million per year, we can only complete about 5 miles of complete streets every year and reduce the fatalities and injuries by 1%. That is a good target to achieve, but if we have more money, we can spend towards more complete streets projects, sidewalk gaps, lighting, and other projects which will help to reduce the crashes. The third funding bucket, which I'm moving on, is the Smart Cities program, which the goal is to reduce delay and improve the travel time reliability. With COVID, again, VMT dropped and travel time disrupted. So, but when we look at the travel time on interstates and non-interstates, we are actually meeting the target. Even the reliability of freight is meeting the target set by the state. One of the major, one of the major consequences of traffic congestion and vehicular air pollution is to exposure to emissions. And we all know that in Hillsborough County, there are many people who are vulnerable to, and who are living near the interstates and who are vulnerable to air pollution and exposure to emissions. As part of the analysis, we looked at the average readings for ozone and the various gases. It all rated good in the AQI scale, and some of the PM10 rated moderate in the AQI scale. But that being said, we still have around 25% of the population who live near high volume roadway, which is any roadway which has over 30,000 AADT, and who live within 300 meters of this high volume roadway. It is even more difficult when we look at the communities of concern, where almost around 40% of the people live near a high volume roadway and who are exposed to emissions. This was actually requested by this measure was actually requested at the meeting when we presented it to the joint CAC and TAC, and we did this analysis post after that request. We also looked at the asthma rate, which is around 9%, which is higher than even the state average. So we need to know that we need more money to be invested to help some of these, to reduce some of these emissions. And we are also seeing a trend where people are moving towards electric vehicles, and hopefully with that will help to reduce the exposure to emissions. This is this funding chart which shows how the spending on smart cities is, and roughly around 43 million per year has been allocated. With this spending, we can only reduce around 2% of delay per year and 1% of mean travel time. Without this, the delay will be increasing a lot by 2045 as per LRTP. The real choice when not driving is the last category here, and mainly we measured the HART ridership. The chart here shows the HART performance as provided to us by HART, and even though the ridership reduced in 2020 compared to 2019, and further it reduced when we measured in July 21 as per HART's budget, it reduced drastically. Streetcar outperformed all the modes, and the ridership nearly increased 225%, which is really good. So more people are probably using other modes of transportation to move around some of the core downtown areas. We also measured the access to transit service, how people have access to transit service, and we found that about 10% of the population and jobs have very good have transit services which have very good frequency or better. And about 20% of the people and about 40% of the jobs are served by a transit which is at least 60 minutes frequency or better availability. This is another measure where we looked at the people for the transportation disadvantaged population. Around 45,000 residents are considered as critical needs population, and that number is expected to grow in the next by 2045. And the trip demand is going to increase for people over 65 years or older. So these people are people who are critical demand of transit, and out of that, around 2.4% are residents who solely depend on other modes of transportation because they live in a household with 0 vehicles. The non-motorized travel, we try to assess how many miles of sidewalks, shared youth path, and bike lanes are accessible. Again, the lines what you see here in white are the sidewalks, and the other ones are the ones which are the grocery stores, schools, and hospitals, which are accessible to people. And sidewalks access is very important for these people to to get access to some of these locations. The real choice when not driving spending, when we looked at it, it's roughly 127 million per year. But with this money, although we can serve about 1/3 of the population, only 2 miles of side paths and trails can be built every year, and only 1 transit route's frequency can be improved. So if we have more money, we can definitely spend some towards the sidewalks and trails and completing all those gaps, providing more access to people for some of these locations. Just wanted to quickly recap and say what when we presented to the committees back, they had requested some additional data which we presented, and this will be they were in strong support of the state of the system report and some of the statistics. They were very interested, and they requested if we could update it more frequently. I believe this committee also had the similar request, and with that we will hopefully provide you more updates on a quarterly or a biannual basis. We also have an exclusive webpage which you can see these statistics and where we can update these numbers from time to time. With that, I request you if you can recommend approval of the state of the system report to the board. And I can take any questions at this time.
Thank you. Councilman Maniscalco.
Thank you very much. There's a lot that I want to say, but I know time is limited. But looking at the quality of our roads and how much we have to catch up on, especially when it comes to repaving, I think it's safe to say that our biggest enemy is water. When I say that, it's the rain. And it's not just sea level rise, which is the other elephant in the room, but how it rains in the summer times here deteriorates the asphalt. And in that, we're so behind on paving these roads. I saw like so many roads are eligible for repaving every 17 years or so. But when you have a month of rain in July, you're washing out the potholes that are fixed. You're washing out, the little maintenance things we have, and our roads are still in terrible shape. Not everything, but a large amount. When I talk to people, the first thing is say, when are you going to pave our roads? When are you going to build our sidewalks? Those are probably the top two things that people talk about. So my point is, without a dedicated funding source, I know the discussion with a sales tax is going to come up again, but without that, we're never going to catch up. And we're going to hear the same complaints today and 50 years from now. So a dedicated funding source to fix our roads, a dedicated funding source to expand our bus system. Our county is way too big. If you look at this area post-World War II and how it was the focus taken off the streetcar and the elimination of the streetcar, and then to automobile ownership and privatizing the bus service, and basically pushing people to spread out from that urban core to other parts of the city and other parts of the county, we have so much catching up to do and not enough money to do so. So, a sales tax, a dedicated source for 30 years would allow us to catch up, to expand, to do the maintenance that needs to be done, and address the issues of our lack of transportation. And then one final note is, on the streetcar numbers are high because it's been fare-free, thanks to a grant from the state. But it goes to show you that people will ride it. And once that free ridership ends, we can implement, again, a fare, but maybe $1 a ride or $5 for an all-day pass, whatever we look at. But we already have the mindset in people to use the streetcar. Now that they've had a taste of it, people that would not have ridden the streetcar before now see how convenient it is, and if we were to expand it into Tampa Heights and whatnot. But people see it, they know what it's like, and then we can build upon that. So the appetite for the ridership is there. I think the appetite for the ridership on the bus service, should we expand it to better accommodate the community, is there. But again, we need a dedicated funding source to get there. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Overman?
Thank you, and I'm really glad you brought up that point. What I really like about this report is that it addresses the whole system, and it shows us where our deficits are. It also shows us what projections we need. So to back up your comment about needing a dedicated revenue source, but also that dedicated revenue source provides us with monies or dollars or matching dollars that allow us to participate not only at the state but at the federal level when it comes to building our infrastructure. So the comments we heard earlier about being able to take advantage of those dollars through the infrastructure plan is critically important. What I also appreciate about this is that it's balanced. But one of the comments that I saw earlier was that the transit service that we have and the estimates of what our agency has provided us in terms of reliability and rideability and access, to your point about the streetcar, when we are making estimates of need based on 30-minute and 60-minute turnaround, that bar is really low. It really is low. People will use transit on a 15-minute turnaround much more robustly than they will on a 30 or a 60-minute turnaround. So looking at this comprehensively, this is, in my opinion, an excellent presentation to bring to the public to show them the need, to help them understand the dollars that we need, and in order to be able to not only capitalize on the investment, to not lose our pavement on a more rapid basis than we should. But more importantly, to have the dollars to be able to tap into both state and federal resources to help sustain our system. What I also like about this is that it includes some growth elements to be able to address our growth rates. And that actually is accelerating at a faster rate than we did in 21. Our growth rates are very, very high right now. People are moving here at a very rapid basis. And so having this gives us the ability to plan for where our housing needs to go, our job centers need to go, and where our infrastructure needs to be invested to maintain that infrastructure. So thank you very much, and I would highly recommend, or I'll make the motion to move this forward.
We have a motion and a second. Let me, for this, Commissioner Overman, and seconded by Commissioner Maniscalco. Commissioner Myers?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd just like to echo Councilman Guida's comments on transportation. The slide presentation really is another eye-opener to us. When we look at and talk about the repavement of roads, I know that we as commissioners are very pleased to say that the county is going to step forward with paving very roads, and hopefully that the citizens here will begin to see. And just as we continue to talk about transportation and the need, and look at from the slide presentation where HART is and their need, hopefully we all will be on board to support the 1% transportation tax that will be coming forward, that we'll be discussing this year. And I also would like to mention that we're going to kick that off on February the 9th, holding our first community meeting talking about transportation. And this would address a lot of the questions and how our community need to get behind and support the tax so that we can get a lot of infrastructure projects completed. And then I need to excuse myself, Madam Chair, to join another meeting, then come back to our 10 o'clock meeting. Thank you so much.
Thank you. With that, that was a packed presentation. It's hard to, it seems like we should take like 20% of it over 5 different meetings because there's so much to really look at it there. And I appreciate the points of both, or of everyone, Councilman Maniscalco, Commissioner Overman, and Commissioner Myers. With regards to this, we do have, I think there will be, starting with this year, a lot of discussion about the return to the ballot of the 1%. We are so underfunded, and I've talked about that with regards especially. We all know our transportation system is so underfunded, scraping the bottom of the barrel in terms of our growth and our expansiveness as a county. It's just desperately needed. In particular, our transit system, which I've said before, is the most underfunded transit system in America for a metro area of this size, bar none, and by a huge long shot compared to Sheboygan, Wisconsin, our funding. It's just, it's literally poverty level funding that was set many years ago, and that legacy has built. And as to that, we are missing actually legacy federal funding. We have not gotten those investments over the years because we haven't had the legacy system to warrant that investment. They match our local investment, they match our legacy systems, and we haven't had that. So hopefully we can start to make a big jump forward. I don't even know where to begin with some of this, but just a couple of things. Commissioner Overman, it's truly when you have transit that's arriving every 60 minutes, it's almost like not having transit at all. It's just that doesn't really serve people except in desperate situations. If you can imagine someone trying to take buses that come at once an hour to work and they miss one or have a problem, or a bus somehow doesn't show up, which is not frequent, but can happen. They're out. So we really have to be looking at, I think that's, some of our system having 15-minute frequencies at least. In many places, they have 3 to 5 minute frequencies. That's a standard. 10-minute frequencies are what people can actually feel that they can depend on them by all means. And so 15 minutes is not, for some of our system, we have so little of our system that has 15-minute frequencies now, which is our top frequency. And it's just it covers very, very little. So we're going to have to really do some beefing up with that. And as Councilman Maniscalco pointed out, yes, our streetcar ridership is up because we've been offering it for, FDOT has come in and paid for the streetcar ridership, have paid the cost of boarding. So that those numbers have increased incredibly. And there's places that are experimenting at least with some part of their transit or all of their transit with not charging fees, because often the kinds of mechanism that you need to do, fee charging and boarding and all of that it costs more than the actual fees take in and pay for transit. So that might be something in the future too, in looking at some resources that could even continue to provide that, which is especially needed, I think, during large events and, when we're trying to move all kinds of people. We really just don't have those resources to do so at this time. I noticed a couple other things too, and that's just that I was looking at the air pollution slide, which, I think I bring that up frequently, our particulate matter and how that's affecting the health of this community. Our exhaust from our interstates in particular is really having strong impacts in this community. And I know it was said that electric vehicles, which I used to believe would help us in that regard. I guess it helps us in that regard, but not in, we have a serious problem with tires, I guess, are just, they leave off small particulate matter that are filling our bays and that are so this will still, my point being that the tire shredding, there's a scientific term for it. It's not something that you can see. They shred at invisible particulate matter, but is quite dense, and that's going to happen whether we have electric vehicles or we have anything else. And we also have the noise that comes not with the motors, but actually with the speed of cars traveling against the roadways. So I just wanted to point that out. And then I was a little disappointed by the 1% goal of Vision Zero a year. I just thought that can't be when we're second to fifth to whatever in the entire nation for pedestrian and bicycle deaths. And I know that New York has been incredibly aggressive, New York City. It's a whole different place and density, but about implementing Vision Zero and looking at all kinds of things. And they brought I read an article where they brought down their pedestrian death and bicycle deaths to 1910 levels. And so I think I really want to see, looking, we need to look at money. I know we do aggressively look at that, but even more aggressively look at how we can save lives in this community and do some more robust implementation in that regard. But this was a very packed presentation, and with that, I guess unless there's anyone else that has comments, we can move to the motion, Commissioner Overman, to take this, and Councilman Maniscalco with the second. And seeing no other comments, please do a roll call vote.
Commissioner Kemp?
Yes.
Commissioner Smith?
Yes.
Councilman Maniscalco?
Yes.
Commissioner Overman?
Yes.
Charles Klug?
Yes.
The motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. And with that, we'll move to old and new business.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, we don't seem to have any old or new business, so we stand adjourned, and I left at 9:31. All right.